Hong Kong Tourism Board.
Okay, just stand there.
So guys, I have to take an AI photo.
Do you want? In the video.
So guys, I want to try out the food. So this is an amazing conference. So I think I want to try out the food. Guys, what do you think? What food should I try? If you're from Hong Kong, tell me what food I should definitely try. There's my new friend called Angel. She's from television, radio television. Awesome.
Yeah, I mean, we shouldn't conflate humanoid robots and what's sometimes called cobots, bots that work with humans that may not take human form. Well, so if I could stay with you, the other panelists mentioned the importance of software and AI. Are there applications of that also in construction and real estate?
Yes, I can echo some of your earlier questions, like the digital twins. Now with the BIM, the Building Information Management System, for above ground buildings, they use it for asset management. So you have a digital twin, you have this model, it helps you to identify where is the particular fault for the air conditioning, and where is that installation you had for the pipe and to the near millimeter accuracy. And this is the real applications of digital twin above ground. But don't forget below ground. We all live happily every
Countries that are more robot friendly than others, as I mentioned in my introduction. I saw recently that China has now got the third highest robot density of industrial robots, behind only Singapore and Korea, two much smaller countries. And indeed, I think 4 out of the 5 highest robot density locations are here in Asia. When you travel around the region, do you see China as being a leader in this? Do you think other countries can catch up with it?
Yeah, I think it's a great observation about density, and I hadn't heard that fact before, but obviously the denominator is very different in those countries, right? I mean, also the truth is, I believe that China has a larger industrial robot installed base than the rest of the world combined. And I was looking at some figures this morning, right? And typically 1 year in China installs about as many industrial robots as Europe for a decade. Right, so that gives a sense of the scale. So number one, Asia, and of course that footprint, a lot of complicated things going on in the world. So the footprint is spreading to more places, right? That's certainly happening. But let's talk about China for a moment, right? So it has the demand, right? Therefore it has the install base. And I think the other very important part of China is, I still consider like the Greater Bay Area and Shenzhen the best place in the world, full stop, for software and hardware fusion. Right, so nowhere else in the world do we have the same, I'd say, agglomeration of talent, both in the robotics space, right, so the hardware side of things, plus the software side of things, right, and the AI side of things. And it actually, putting those two things together, right, is going to be one of the massive unlocks. So I think, then if I bring it back to what do factories look like, still the reality is, right, in China, you will find some of the least advanced factories in the world and some of the most advanced factories in the world. So the distribution is very, very wide, right? You have everything from the Stone Age, right, to the Jetsons age. There is no doubt about that. But really, I think, I also add, Chinese companies now own some of the critical robotics companies from Europe as well too, right?
That's something that I see from like something that I've mentioned before.
to monitor and particularly innovate to have more solutions to today's problem. So I call innovations is the new way forward. Innovation is to do away with yesterday's problem with today's technology. So we have to create those opportunities for the young guard so that they can apply their brains and their very, very good idea into more innovations and solve this labor shortage problem, especially for the professional end.
Thank you. Any questions from panelists? There's a gentleman here. If you just wait for the mic to get you, just keep your hand up so they can see you. Great.
Yes, thank you all for the very interesting panel. My question is, what are some of the most promising opportunities to apply robotics and automation to areas like agriculture or animal husbandry?
Good question. Does anyone have any thoughts on agriculture?
I can say quickly, right?
Please.
So I think one thing, I'll just give one example, right? Look at the John Deere business model. Everyone knows John Deere, right? We think of John Deere as making tractors. John Deere is a SaaS company now. John Deere is fertilizing as a service. Because what's the best way to do agriculture today? It's to fuse data on, I know the very precise GPS location of where I am. I know exactly how much rainfall I got at this spot, in the past 6 months. I have probably some soil samples that have been taken, right? And I have information about the yield of my soybean crop of last year. And all of that information can be processed to determine exactly for this 1 meter plot of land, what quantity of fertilizer, what amount of water should be dropped on it, right? That's how agriculture works effectively today. And actually, therefore, business models are evolving to say, look, how do I bring that level of sensor fusion, machine learning, right, to optimize yield, minimize environmental impact, etc. I think it's moving very fast in agriculture, right? It then creates a set of challenges in agriculture, which is look in countries where agriculture is fragmented. If in China, I believe that most milk comes from farms with 3 cows. That's changing quickly, right? But this is the domain of large agriculture, and there's a lot that's moving in that space. So I think there's a lot of advancement, and then it runs into the realities of how does that work with the actual kind of agricultural business model and land ownership processes in various countries.
I can give another example. Because of the pipe scan AI work, we also look into AIoT technology. And one of those sensors being used all along for monitoring water levels in the agricultural field. Because we use that sensor to monitor the flooding level. And the same sensor can be very useful for people to note the humidity and also to know the water level of the field for that particular type of crop. And this is the ways forward.
Thank you. I think that's probably
that long haul, and the interregional has been more of a temporary, or whether or not that's a trend to this day. But it's an interesting one to watch. In terms of technology, the region is ripe for technology startups. And David's a classic example of an incredible startup with Glue. And I would say that technology is coming thick and fast from this region. We've got more than 60% of the world's population. We know that it's a disintermediate industry that we need to develop. So it's an exciting time.
Thank you. That's an interesting. What are your thoughts on travel trends in Asia at the moment and how they're influencing travel tech development?
Yes, I do agree that indeed it's very much interregional. I think we are also seeing that it's very much more into individual travelers, maybe less groups, and people are looking at different experiences. And probably we'll be talking about that later, but also look at the topic of destinations, looking at how people start maybe to go off the beaten track, and there's still a topic around that. A big trend, I think, and we were discussing about that for 2 of us who came yesterday flew into Hong Kong, into the topic of travel in Asia. Typically, there's also a lot of topic around payment, fintech, because it's something that is not very well standardized yet. So when people travel around, they don't always have access to the payment means that they are used to have at home. And I think that's something that is going to also have a lot of impact on the region.
David?
Travelers, which is millennials and Gen Zs, they're focusing more and more on the experiences of the trip. This can be a flight to a hotel, but it's more about what you're doing in destination, which I think echoes to multiple shorter trips, which I'm just going there and find something I really can remember and can do with my loved ones and then go back. So with this trend, I think what we're trying to do is just to bring more and more supply to the customers. I think this how to digitalize this fragmented supply is definitely one trend in Asia that's happening right now.
Bianca, how about you?
Well, I find people have been more well-traveled than ever before, so they are more looking for special destinations, and they have been doing much with more DeepSeek and other ChatGPT. They're doing more and more travel planning with generative AI. That's why they're looking into more work and photogenic spots to take photos. That's what we're seeing.
Interesting. And you've helped us glide right into my next question, which is around what those travel tech innovations are that are having the largest impact on the tourism economy here in Asia. And happy for you to share any examples of use cases from your own organizations and any learnings that have emerged so far from the solutions that you've already implemented. And David, perhaps I can start off with you.
Yes, I think two parts. One is, like I just said, we're still trying to bring the supply online, which is the very early stage of digitalization. Now, this may seem very simple, but let me explain, right? Currently, the penetration rate of activities online is about 20 to 25%. Unlike like hotels, probably 90-80% already. Now, imagine you're a business owner, you hold a very small kimono shop, where then you know the customer coming to Japan want to take a photo to Instagram on their, brag about their friends. But how do you get those customers in to book your supplies? The other round of that is, if I'm a customer, I'm going to Japan, how I'm able to find all those kimono shops that's able to provide me with the experiences I'm expecting. Now, so we're still trying to help them to just connect the supply and demand. So that's what we're trying to do. So that's number one, still the connectivity. Second, I think definitely Gen AI is helping a lot. If you look at the system as an ecosystem, demand supply platform, demand is the customers, supply is the merchants, and platform will be what we're doing. I think Gen AI definitely have a lot of implications in all of these angles. For example, for the supply side, right? In the past, if you're a merchant, you want to bring the supply online, you need to go through a long list, fill in the information on the form, make the price, upload the photos. This right now can be largely done by Gen AI, and the efficiency has been much, much better. And on top of that, I think Gen AI now is able to even changing a static photo into a video, which is still authentic. So nothing has been artificial in the video, it's just true, it's just animating sort of a static picture. This is very game-changing for the supply to make it seen by the customers. Now for the customers, if I'm going to, let's say I'm going to Japan, I want to go to a Mount Fuji trip. Now I know there are multiple trip routes I can take. I know, there are different pickup locations, different time, different lunch options, and etc. In the past, how we do this is we have
an increasing threat in especially popular destinations like Japan and for you to share your thoughts.
Sure, I think there's a resounding answer there, and I would say it's obviously not just Thailand and Japan. And a bit to Bianca's point, I wish I was a traveller like Bianca, and maybe I'll engage you rather than AI, but I think there's the more Instagram, for example, or the desire to travel for the photo opportunity is a bit of a double-edged sword, because it's giving the opportunity to go to different, unique, often interact types of destinations, but it's steering everybody to the same destinations. So I think that there's an opportunity that we can leverage using generative AI to try and disperse that, to try and recommend different locations. It does seem right now the whole world wants to be in Japan, for example, but how do we make sure that certain locations don't suffer and other locations benefit from the tourism dollars that are very much filtered into small locations? So I do think that there is opportunity, and this is where AI can help. Like now today, the technology is driving more into singular destinations, and I think there's more opportunity for us to spread that out.
Absolutely, and I think a key part of that discussion is also balancing these huge tourist numbers with environmental sustainability concerns. So clearly here what Laura described is a challenge that's brought on by technology, but are there any examples of technologies that are helping mitigate these challenges that come from over-tourism in these countries? Kang, would you like to share?
Yeah, sure. Just to add on, I think there was a study from the United Nations which says that 95% of travelers today go into 5% of the locations in the world. So we can see that there is a real topic, as you mentioned, about concentration of people. In terms of technology, I think that what I think is that typically tourism authorities in every countries have a very huge role in terms of looking at the data, in terms of where people go, and try to promote different destinations. So if I look at it, so it's a very smaller scale, but if you look at the scale of Singapore, what is interesting is that last year, I think the number of tourists was twice the population of Singapore for the whole year. The strategy of the Singapore Tourism Board is interesting because what they are trying to do is, for example, to spread tourism over space and time. What does that mean? It means that from a time perspective, I don't know if they negotiated or not, but if you look at big events that happen in Singapore, so for example, there was the concert of Coldplay, then Taylor Swift, in Formula One, it was January, March, and then September. So that's one way also to spread the flow of tourists into the country.
Photo data sharing programs, just like how airline, it can be anonymized data. For example, airline can be sharing flight the occupancies for the travelers, like what type of tiers of travelers coming to Hong Kong or other parts of Asia. Then hotels can share about the occupancy as well too. And in terms of the spending, the nights they're staying in Hong Kong, and together with some SMEs, what are the trends of restaurants, like how many bookings. So there are more about data sharing in that sense. And I think we are from Swire, so we got it more opportunities as cafes under our purpose also. Great, wow.
In many parts of the developing world, actually there are very few health workers and teachers. The teaching materials and deliver the learning from several years to several months. We are seeing this happening. And also, drug discovery, again, timelines, going from several years to several months could really enable very timely and affordable responses to global health crisis. So these are the examples where we are super excited about. But of course, with these big opportunities also come with risks. So we're actually concerned about several things. The first one I already referred to earlier is that we really worry that AI may become an economic and social divider, and countries that do not have access to digital tools, they are really being left behind, and do not leverage AI for the development that we want to see in education, healthcare, and economic growth. But the second thing is what we discussed is also our second concern is about ethical use. If I use an analogy, is that with nuclear technology, it's actually very centralized. I often use the statistics that it took 75 years for fixed telephony to reach 100 million users, but in the case of DeepSeek, it took 7 days. So while the reach is really huge, but the concern is that the risks and responsibilities are also very diverse. So how actually regulators really keep up with the latest technology and balance innovation with safeguards, and also embed all the regulatory practice in their current legal and regulatory system is easier said than done. So that's our second concern. The last concern I just want to mention is that everybody knows data is the new oil and technology is power. So technology competition and also geopolitical tensions are now really causing divergence in regulation, but also disrupt the global AI value chains. And we're very concerned about that because that creates trade barriers and also cause innovation arbitrage. So we really hope that a harmonized global framework will be created. At least there's forum like today's, that people from different backgrounds, from different countries, from different systems can at least gather and discuss.
Thank you. Back to the end users. Yuman, maybe if you have any views on that.
Absolutely. I have a little bit different opinion on the topic in terms of the regular perspective. I can take a few seconds on that. I don't believe enforcement is the way to go. Not that anyone mentioned that, but I think it showed that, we have recent examples of the Paris Green Accord that doesn't work. So we have to kind of move in terms of a transparency view what we have. So going back from, kind of a top-down approach from a national or, regional perspective back on the business level, and most of the businesses that we have in Hong Kong are multinational. So from that perspective, if I point, a little bit industry agnostic view, probably will be more useful for the crowd, for the audience that we have here. I think it starts with being transparent with your stakeholders. So you can have multiple stakeholders in the ecosystem. It could be your customers, it could be your employees, it could be your shareholders. I think understanding of what data you cultivate and store and how you utilize that perspective and how you activate the data, that's key, right? Of course, the baseline of privacy, and even more so, I would have to kind of focus on the cybersecurity that probably dropped the game globally on that piece, but it's hopefully coming back. That's the baseline to kind of restore, that trust. On that level, right? I think going forward from bringing the trust back, I don't believe the trust was gone at a point. I think there was a confusion when there's a new technology. Human culture is always afraid about something they don't fully understand. And I think we have to do a better job of explaining what we employ in our own companies, how that affects our employees, our customers, and the entire stake value perspective. Also, I do want to mention, there will be always gaps, right? We can never stop AI adoption. That's why enforcement never works, right? We have to focus on transparency. But how do we close these gaps faster so we can move to the next level of acceleration is key. What we deploy on the business level, and I think this is what governments also do, is trying to, close the gap from reskilling or upskilling. Trying to find universal skills that will be in demand in the next 10 or 20 years. So we have to ensure both our employees, both our citizens, we reskill them so they're successful when AI goes to the next stage, which hopefully will be the artificial general intelligence. So we have to prepare both our businesses, on a business level perspective, we have to prepare our institutional level, our regulators to play in that sandbox, but also on a national or regional level as well.
Anyway, I'm delighted to be joined by my panelists with those technologies. What is less clear is how we're going to be able to share the spoils, if you like, across all industries, society from those sort of technologies as well. Because some areas there are barriers, isn't there? There's barriers, what I should actually. I've got a view of what I think barriers are. I'd love to know what you think the major barriers are, which are stopping us from preventing us from getting some shared growth and benefits out of these technologies, whether it's some skills or money or connectivity or so on and so forth. So I'm going to get each of you to respond to that. So we're starting with the negatives around barriers. We'll move on to more positive stuff. Chris.
Yeah, thanks, Charles. First of all, it felt like I needed to run onto the stage after that video instead of walking.
Time on the pit stop.
Exactly, yes. So look, with regards to barriers, it's an interesting thing, and I think I would look at it as three major sort of drivers of the barriers that we are seeing. The first one is undeniably cost, and in this regard, hopefully over time we see that cost barrier reducing. But in reality at the moment, it's still a significant cost overlay to actually ensure that we can accommodate what is required as building blocks to allow us to actually start adopting, I guess, more advanced AMA methodologies, models in our businesses and start tuning towards something that doesn't feel like just dabbling or a bit of a use case here and there, but something that becomes part and parcel of our enterprise. And I define the cost as a couple of things. So first of all, there's the infrastructure cost. I mean, the reality is for most businesses, you have to pay your taxes before you can start utilizing something that is very different to the way that your teams are used to working. And in that regard, you need a cloud sort of infrastructure to be in place. You need to migrate, you need to organize your data accordingly as well. And all of these things are, in a lot of cases, multi-year initiatives that enterprises will need to undertake to actually ensure that they are geared and set up in such a way that the benefits then become easier and at a lower cost base to achieve. So there's a huge cost infrastructure overlay that ultimately is going to be a barrier for large organizations unless they're organized already to be able to adapt accordingly. So that's the cost side. I'd say the second part of cost is skills. So at the moment, the reality is we love to talk about, we've been talking about this topic all day, right? AI as a topic. I can tell you now that in our senior management board level type conversations, this is dominating the agenda. You're dealing with a lot of people that are talking about something without really understanding the detail or have the skills to actually diagnose what exactly is required. And I think that's sort of the hype cycle diagnostic we're running through. but the skills then to ultimately build a solution, right? I'm lucky enough to work for a bank. We've got a number of people that are building algo solutions, algo pricing models. They've been doing that for a decade plus. We've got regulations that are in place. So we've got a group of people that are geared towards dealing with this problem statement that we can go and tap into. But for most companies, you would need to go into the marketplace to find advanced data scientists, people that are actually advanced modelers and able to build models that are essentially able to tune accordingly. And those skills are scarce and they're very expensive at this stage. And that will obviously change over time as well. So that's cost. Secondly, just very quickly, quality of decision making. I've mentioned the fact that at senior management levels, these things are being discussed. I'm not always sure that the quality of decision making around the benefits we're hoping to achieve and then the short-term sort of focused decisions we're making now is really based on the sort of the amount of quality you'd expect to underpin the important decisions relating to this topic. But there's also quality of data. And the quality of the data is garbage in, garbage out. It's the self-fulfilling prophecy, which I think is a major problem for most companies. The last section of this is really, it's, I guess, whether we are keeping the right focus for the duration, right? So we love to jump from one topic to the next in organizations. We're very good at
Very similar to that. Yeah.
Nowadays, they only heard of it, but they never use it. But how can we start to help them? I think they will combine the joint force from the authorities, the public sectors, and also universities and the private companies together. I think we should form a joint force and start to create a certified program to help the existing employees working in the trade companies and start to learn how to use it. What is the best way to start to leverage the AI or AI agents to really help in their daily job and works, and then start to optimize their daily operations. I think this is something and challenge. I mean, also the opportunities here we should try to embrace.
Yeah, good. One company, but I think we need governments and to help shape a structural policy framework to incentivize company really willing to invest to educate our next generation, at the same time bringing up the current generation to achieve a new goal.
Excellent. I'm glad you sort of clarified that it was education of people in the workforce, because I had a panel yesterday where somebody suggested we need more education of policymakers and business around new technologies as well, because it's really difficult to make decisions about things which leaders don't fully understand.
This is breakfast, guys. Welcome to day 2 of the conference. You wanna say hi? What's your name? Say
Hello, I would say hello.
yeah, she's eating.
I
But I hope you're enjoying yourself, right?
Yeah, my name is Amber.
Amber.
This is day 2 of the Economist Impact Conference. Another big day.
Yes, another big day, guys. Tune in. Make sure you're roped in so that you don't miss on the events. Hi, thank you so much for watching. Remember to hit a like button if you're still watching, and welcome to Hong Kong.